Have you ever been listening to another bass player and they're playing a groove, maybe something like this? And all of a sudden you hear this sound or this sound. And you probably think, what is that? It's so funky, it's so timeless, it's a great sound. I hear it all over the place. Well, that, my friend, is a tritone. And in this video lesson, we're going to look at 3 concrete bass lines that will give you some specific vocabulary and help you to understand the concept of tritones so that you can get them going in your own playing. So to start off with, let's look at our first bass line. We'll jump right into hearing how it sounds, and then I'll break down some of the concepts, show you the notes, walk you through the rhythm, and we'll check out the other 2 bass lines. All right, so for all 3 of these bass lines, we are going to be based around A, the key of A. I'll say more about that soon. This one included, and this is going to be our most beginner-friendly bass line. We know that we're in A, but what is a tritone? Let's take a step back and figure out what this video is about. Well, if you know your basic music theory, you know that a tritone is simply one of many types of intervals. An interval in music is just 2 notes that are a certain distance apart. As bass players, we often think about perfect fifths or octaves. A tritone is just another interval. Specifically, a tritone is a pair of notes that are 3 whole steps apart. So if I'm here on G, and I go up 1 whole step to A, another to B, another to C sharp, I now have a tritone, G to C sharp. One of the things that's interesting and useful about tritones is that you can switch the order of the notes and it's still a tritone, G to C sharp or C sharp to G. Both sound like tritones even though we're switching the order. Now, in any 7-note scale, there's going to be one naturally occurring tritone. There's many major thirds, there's many minor thirds, there's many perfect fifths, but there's only one tritone in each 7-note scale. And we're going to use that to our advantage as we check out some different sounds in this video. If we're in the key of A, specifically A mixolydian, where we're playing over an A dominant 7th chord, in the A mixolydian scale, our one naturally occurring tritone falls between the 3rd and the 7th. That is C sharp and G, same 2 notes I showed you a moment ago. This first bass line uses this sound. It's played over a static A7 chord. Static chord simply means it doesn't change, it's just 1 chord over and over. And we're using that sound of C sharp and G to create an effect. The notes of the bass line are quite simple. We're using our root, 5th, and 7th, and then the octave of the root. And that's the primary motif of the bass line. We're just applying a rhythm to those notes. If we want to count that rhythm, we're using swung 16th notes, and it would count like this. 3, E and, a 4, E and, a 1, E and. 2, E and a 3, E and a 4, E and a 1, E and a 2, E and a 3, E and a 4, E and a 1. I won't count every single piece of vocab in this video because it would just get very, very lengthy, but since this is our most beginner-friendly line, we'll count this one out. So that's our basic motif. Now we're ready to add a tritone. So what we're going to do is every other time we play this, at the end of the phrase, we're going to come up here. We're going to play those two notes we talked about, C sharp and G. Now I could play those at a lot of different places on the fretboard. I could go way up high. I'm going to play them here, which is a very common register for this sound. And you'll notice I'm kind of sliding into that first note just to accent it more. I'm sliding from B up to C sharp, and then hitting the G. If we put it together, this is what we get. And you can see I'm kind of wiggling the G using a really aggressive vibrato. Now, something to point out harmonically here, part of why tritones are so commonly used, especially this mixolydian sound on the electric bass, is it really reinforces the harmony. If you know anything about functional harmony with seventh chords, you'll know that other than the root, the most important two notes of a seventh chord are the third and the seventh. What two notes do we have in our tritone? G and C sharp. We're in the key of A. That's the seventh and the third, or the third and the seventh. This is why the sound works so well, because it implies the sound of a dominant seventh chord with just two notes. It's got enough personality that it can sound like a fill and has a lot of flavor, but it's still very much rooted in our basic harmony. So it works really well. Now this bass line, we've got this basically fleshed out at this point, but with one more detail. So far, we've got two phrases, an A phrase and a B phrase. This follows an A-B format. I play the A, I play the B. I play the A, I play the B. I'm not talking about chords like an A and B chord. I'm talking about format. A, B, A, B. And the last thing to add in here, every fourth time we do it, we've got a different ending. Instead of that B phrase, we play. Let me do that again. What is that? It sounds like a lot. Well, guess what? It's just 4 consecutive tritones. I start with G and C sharp, same notes we've been using, just an octave down, and then I just go down a half step at a time. F sharp and C, F and B, E and B flat, and that leads us right back into our A. Now I'm playing a ghost note before each one. If you want to get some ghost notes in your playing, but that's new to you, I'll include a link to a different lesson where I explain some basics of the ghost notes. You could also do this with an open E. And that would work fine as well. So that phrase, the very end of our 4 times through this bass line, we go. Things like that, I'm not thinking about what are those chords. You could stop and do that. I just found a piece of vocab. I liked that this descends back to our A. I didn't analyze it any more than that. Sometimes you don't have to think so much. Okay, so we put it all together and that's our bass line. That's number 1. Let's get ready to look at our next bass line. We'll check it out first and then we'll analyze it. Here we go. Okay, bass line number 2. We've got a faster tempo, we have more notes, and we have some more technical stuff going on. Let's get into it. So we're still based around an A. This time we're largely drawing on an A major pentatonic sound. That is simply 1, 2, sliding up to 3, 5, 3, 2. A, B, C sharp, E, C sharp, B. And that's our main phrase. We sort of have a call and response thing going on here, and that's the call. Now the end of the phrase changes. We have our first option where we drop to a low G, then a G sharp. We're back at A, but we add a ghost note before each one. Those ghost notes are details. It's not essential that they're there, but they add a lot. So our first phrase. Second time around, the call is the same, but the response is a little different. We drop down to F sharp, and then we simply throw in a tritone. G, C sharp, and back to A. So if I take those two phrases and put them together, we get the core of our bass line. Very cool. One thing is missing, and that's our tritone fill. We're using the same exact notes, that mixolydian tritone sound, the third and the seventh, that we did in the first bass line. We're even playing it at the same place on the fretboard. But this time we're adding a bit more to it. What we're doing is a little fill that starts with the tritone and then moves away from it. We're sliding into our G from the F sharp below it, and we play our tritone back to the G. And then we do two descending thirds. B and G, that's our second and our seventh. A and F sharp, that's our root and our sixth. But I'm not really thinking about those scale degrees. I'm just thinking about the fact that it's descending thirds. This is kind of a tricky fill with your fretting hand, because you're probably going to have to rely on your ring finger more than you're used to. So it's actually a good technical exercise or warm-up. But that's it. We take our core bass line, and you could really do it as you desire, but I'm kind of doing it every fourth phrase. we add that fill at the end. There's number 2. Let's get into number 3. Okay, so number 3, obviously I'm playing this as a slap bass line. You could also play this finger style. And we've got 2 tritones happening here. That's probably the most exciting thing about this. So let's talk about some theory. First, we've got the tritone sound that we're used to, even on the same part of the fretboard, G and C sharp. I am adding an open A beforehand, and then hammering on the G. And what a cool sound, because we get this hammer on that has a big range, an open A all the way up to this high G. I love that sound. But then we have this other tritone. So what's the deal with that? Well, this time we're drawing from a different mode. We're actually drawing from the Dorian mode. If we take A Dorian, the one naturally occurring tritone in the Dorian scale falls between the 3rd and 6th scale degrees. In this case, C and F sharp, or F sharp and C. All I'm doing is I'm starting on the low F sharp, sliding up to the C, and hitting the high F sharp, and then the C again. This is such a cool sound. You really hear a lot of funky bass players use this, especially bassists who tend to be more in the spotlight, like Flea or Marcus Miller, people like that. There's a couple ways you could think about what's happening here. You could think about this whole thing as being over an A dominant 7th chord, and we're just borrowing from the Dorian mode. Or you could think about this as changing from an A7 to an A minor 7, where we've got the Mixolydian sound and then the Dorian sound, back and forth. I myself think of it in this case more as a static A7, and we're borrowing that sound. Now that we've established that, let's talk about the notes to the bass line. So it starts off like this. What's all that? Well, it's just fifths and roots. We've got a low E hammering onto an A, the octave A, and then the middle E. E, A, E. Just 2 notes, root and fifth. And then I do this trill. And that's the 6th and 7th scale degree. And I picked that for this because it emphasizes that this could be a dominant 7th sound, or it could be a minor 7th sound. It's ambiguous. And depending on what the rest of the band was doing or how you're thinking about it, it could be either one. That initial pickup on the low E is kind of optional. I like to do it at the start, though, at least. And then we just go back to our low E and G, emphasizing that flat 7 and kind of doing some heavy vibrato on it. That's our basic phrase. Next time around, we start the same way. And and we just do our mixolydian tritone. Back to our basic phrase. This time around, we're going to do it, but with our Dorian tritone. So I'm taking one phrase, which is this, and I've got 3 different endings. I've got a sort of neutral groove ending. I've got a mixolydian tritone fill. I'm thinking of it as a fill. And I've got a Dorian tritone fill. Probably my favorite sound. I'm just organizing those into a repeating pattern. Groove, mixolydian. Groove. Sorry, can't talk and play at the same time. And then Dorian. If that's a lot for you right now, you don't have to do the slide. You could just hit the notes up there, or even kind of gets the same sound, but not quite as cool as that. Take this and write your own lines with it. That's how you're going to get this sound really internalized. Take songs that you already know and use this as a fill. Don't stop at just learning these bass lines, but hopefully these 3 have given you a solid foundation and a good understanding of how this works. So let me know in the comments how this has been for you. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.